Today we find ourselves in Chapter 6. We're in the first section, Section 1, Part 1. And it's a section I really like to talk about, especially it's the whole idea of progressivism. And the first section is the roots of progressivism. So the first thing is to ask is, what is a progressive? There are reformers that believe that the efforts of individuals and the government can make for a society to be more fair. Progressives at this time period from 1877 to 1920 shaped the modern idea of what the role of government should be in today's life, meaning that if we don't like a law, we have the ability to either talk to our elected officials, or we could protest, or we could fight to change the law to make sure that things are fair for all people. The rise of progressivism, it was a reaction to the laissez-faire economics and the unregulated markets that we talked about in the earlier chapters, meaning business had a rampant control of all aspects, and the government did little to stop the rise of those powers. Progressives believed that the industrialization and urbanization created social problems. So by these societies, by creating these factories, by bringing in these immigrants, society had a lot of problems, a lot of woes. Looking at cities, we talked about before about tenement housings. The systems were not just there. When we talked about the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire, women dying because of the inability for the businesses to make the environment safe. And the question was, could the market fix the poverty, filth, and crime of the working class man? Meaning that all of us who try to work really hard every single day, will we ever get a fair shake? So how does this get to the attention of the American people as a whole? And the term is the term muckraker. And what muckrakers were journalists who uncover abuses and corruption in society. This name was given by President Theodore Roosevelt because he perceived that they had almost an obsession with the scandal and corruption. So during this section, we're going to talk about a lot of different muckrakers. Ida Tarbell and Charles Edward Russell, they exposed the corruption of large corporations. Jacob Riis, he wrote the book How the Other Half Lives. It talked about the poverty, disease, and crime in NYC, New York City. And my favorite, Upton Sinclair and the Jungle, which we'll talk about in detail through an activity, talking about the dangers of the meatpacking industry and how the average person was not protected by their government. So what do we want as progressives? Progressives want to reform the government. They want to fix the corruption in the government. They wanted to create a direct primary where a vote would be held by members of a political party to decide who their candidate for public office would be. This is so that they were able to bring up and nominate people who were telling the truth, meaning that it wasn't going to be based off of party bosses and the party system that we had before, which led to a lot of corruption and a lot of repetition. They also created the idea of referendums and recall elections. And today many states still have this, meaning that if we vote for a candidate or a governor or a senator, and if they go out there and they promise us a lot of things and they don't deliver on it, we have the ability to get petitions together to recall or create a referendum to change the way things are happening. We get more direct say on the activities, especially if they're controversial. And the final part of the beginning of this section, I want to talk about the 17th Amendment. Was in 1913, progressives fought for the direct elections of U.S. senators to stop the influence of political machines. And this was also seen as a way of fighting corruption. Originally, when the Constitution was created, the U.S. senators were supposed to represent the state. That's why it's proportionate to senators per state. And these people were supposed to represent the state, but in reality, the people said, these are supposed to be our representatives too. They're supposed to represent on our laws. So this amendment, the 17th Amendment, is going to be a fight or a way to try to fight corruption and get direct representation of senators, meaning that we could run through a primary, get our parties involved, and then each party could put up a person for a general election, and then in the general election we vote for the majority wins, and they would be the people who would represent the entire state in the United States Senate.